Hey everyone, I am absolutely thrilled you're here today. We are tackling a challenge that, let's be real, almost all of us face, but very few of us know how to navigate smoothly. We're talking about setting family boundaries without turning every single conversation into an all-out conflict. If you've ever felt completely drained by family obligations, but you're kind of terrified of speaking up, you are definitely in the right place. In this explainer, we're going to use some incredibly clear, visual blueprints to help you mentally map out a healthier relationship architecture. We are going to design a system that actually works.
So let's just dive right into this and confront the central dilemma head-on. Are boundaries just walls we build against our family? When we even think about setting limits with our relatives, it feels so incredibly hard, right? And why is that? Well, because family isn't just a group of people. It's a deeply messy, interconnected web of history, loyalty, duty, guilt, and love. When you start sketching out limits, it feels like you're slapping up a giant brick wall between you and the people you care about most. But what if we completely redesign how we visualize this?
Our source material actually gives us this really beautiful quote to help paint a picture. It says, "A boundary is not a wall. It is more like the edge of a courtyard in Lahore." I want you to literally visualize that as we draft our plans today. A courtyard isn't closed off, right? It just visually tells people where the shared space ends, so everyone can move through it without constantly bumping into each other or stepping on each other's toes. The edges simply create a shared, confusion-free space. So remember, we aren't building walls today, we're just sketching the edges of our courtyard. To build this courtyard, we need a solid blueprint. So here is our roadmap for the next few minutes. We'll look at the family boundary problem, define what a boundary actually is, explore the different types, figure out how to say it, learn how to hold the line, and finally, how to stay connected healthily.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the family boundary problem, or as it's often felt, the messy web.
Which brings us perfectly into Section 2, what exactly is a boundary? Let's start drafting this blueprint.
At its core, a boundary is simply the exact point where your responsibility ends and someone else's begins. Think of it like drawing a bold, protective line right around your personal notebook. Those are your notes. Someone else can look at them if you allow it, but they absolutely do not get to grab a pen and start rewriting your life just because they're family. A boundary marks ownership. It's not about trying to control them. It's about being visually and practically clear about where you start and where you stop.
Now, to make this blueprint actually work, we've got to grab our mental erasers and wipe away a few false ideas. Boundaries are not selfishness. They are not a rejection of your loved ones. They are definitely not disrespect, a fight, or some long-winded lecture. Actually, a boundary is a really profound form of honesty. It's a structural tool. It's not a weapon. And you know, when we strip away all these misconceptions, the whole design of our relationship starts to feel so much lighter.
We also constantly confuse boundaries with punishment. But there is a massive contrast here. Punishment is about making someone suffer for crossing a line, like saying, "I'm not talking to you for a week." A boundary is simply saying what you will do to protect the line, like saying, "I'm not available to discuss this further." Visually, punishment is like throwing a stone at someone. A boundary is just standing firmly behind your gate. It stops all that hidden bubbling resentment from doing the talking for you.
Moving right along to Section 3, types of family boundaries. Let's look at how we're structuring the rooms in our house.
If we look closely at how these rooms are structured, we've got time boundaries protecting your schedule, emotional boundaries protecting your mental space, physical boundaries for your body, financial for your resources, and informational boundaries for your privacy. The type of boundary might change depending on the room, but the underlying structural logic never does. Not everything about you is automatically available to everyone else. We have the absolute right to design the access points to different parts of our lives.
Okay, Section 4, how to say it. Time to start speaking this blueprint out loud.
Listen, you can have the most beautiful mental design in the world, but if you don't use the right language, the whole thing falls apart. The big warning here is that muddying your words with long, defensive explanations completely muddies the access point. Over-explaining accidentally just hands over an open invitation for an argument. So how do we say it clearly? We use a simple, calm, three-step formula. Step 1, state what is not available. Step 2, state what is available instead, if anything. And Step 3, state what you will do if the limit is pushed. You don't need to dramatically announce all three every single time, but keeping this formula in your head keeps your blueprint incredibly crisp and prevents you from slipping into a debate over your own rules. The really crucial point here is understanding the difference between being harsh and being clear. A lot of us are terrified that if we draw a firm line, we're just being rude. But look at it this way. "Stop bothering me" is harsh. It's an attack on the person. "I'm not available to discuss this" is clear. It simply defines the access. Kindness without clarity is just a recipe for confusion, but clarity without contempt? That becomes respect. It is a beautifully clean line of communication.
Which brings us to Section 5, holding the line. This is where we actually build the gate.
A boundary only exists if your behavior actively supports it. Think about it. If you build a beautiful gate but leave it wide open every time someone pushes on it, well, the gate is just a decoration. Let's put this into a super practical if-then loop. If someone repeatedly calls late at night, your boundary language is, I don't take calls after 9. But the holding behavior, the gate itself, is simply not answering the phone after 9 p.m. If it's a money request, you state you aren't lending money, and the behavior is not debating it or making an exception out of guilt. The boundary isn't held by sounding stronger or yelling louder. It's held by consistent, visible behavior. Now, here's the kicker. When you start holding this line, the system will push back. Boundary pressure often looks like a barrage of more questions, way more guilt trips, higher emotional intensity, and straight-up accusations of selfishness. Our source material gives a fantastic example. Imagine being guilt-tripped over Pakistani wedding planning expectations just because you're the most organized. When you finally say you can only manage one part of it, the pressure is going to spike. But that increased pressure just means the boundary is finally becoming visible. It's like turning on a bright light in a room that's been dim for years. It absolutely does not mean the boundary is wrong.
Let's just pause for a second because this might be the most profound realization of this entire explainer. Comfort and correctness are not the same thing. When you hold a boundary, you are probably going to feel a massive wave of guilt, but that is simply the emotional residue of breaking an old familiar pattern. Just because everyone is temporarily uncomfortable does not mean you have made a mistake. Do not let temporary discomfort erase the lines you've so carefully drawn.
And that leads us to our final section. Section 6, Staying Connected Healthfully. Welcome to the finished courtyard. To live in this new courtyard, we need a total visual redesign of our mindset. The old focus was always, how do I say yes without feeling completely resentful? But honestly, that was a trap. Your new identity, based on the clear structural frameworks we've built today, is this. I can separate closeness from over-access. You reframe your mindset from feeling constantly used up and drained to staying warm, loving, and connected without having to be unconditionally available for absolutely everything. You have finally designed a healthy shape for your relationships. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, empowering question to guide your future architecture. What level of healthy access keeps this limit real? When you stop just guessing your way through family pressure and start actively thinking in boundaries, you change the whole game. Remember, you aren't building walls. You are designing a beautiful, sustainable courtyard. Thank you so much for joining me today, and hey, I highly encourage you to start sketching out those healthy lines right now.